All right. Okay, well, I'd like to begin by talking about humans, and I've got a confession to make before I start. My name's Ros Cardinal, and I'm biased. And I know this because I'm human. All right, so let's think about human beings and human beings as a species. So just imagine that we were to all head out and get a bus and head out to a zoo right now. And as we're wandering around the zoo and we're having a look at all of the displays of the animals, and they're all sitting there in their, wonderful enclosures. They're not cages these days, they're habitat enclosures. So we're wandering around looking at the habitat enclosures, and we find a habitat enclosure that has Homo sapiens listed on it. So what is it that descriptor is going to tell us about people? Imagine you're reading that card. What does it tell us about people? Tell me what you see. Anything that comes to mind? Sorry? Not many clothes. What else? What do we see about people? They come in different colours, absolutely. What else do we know about people? Men are left-handed and women are right-handed. Interesting, I've never heard that one before. What else do we know about people? There's male and female, yep, and you can generally tell the difference, but not always. What else? Quite often, yep. What sort of behaviours would we notice in them? Very good communicators, that's really important. Very effective communicators. How do we tend to use communication? Yes, we're a very social species. We hang out together in groups. And that's really important. We are, in fact, a lot of ways different from a lot of other species. And when you look at us in our natural habitat and you think about going back hundreds of thousands of years, I was actually reading a book, I've been reading it recently, called Sapien, which is it's basically a brief history of humankind. And when we go back to our ancestral roots, what was our competitive advantage? Because we're not very fast, we're not very strong, we don't have protective fur, we don't have claws, we don't have feathers, we can't fly. What was our competitive advantage out there on the savannah? Social organisation, yep. We're very good at working together to get outcomes. We're very smart and we're very good at working together to get outcomes. Now, with that comes a whole set of challenges. And when we think about human beings, and here we are in our ancestral setting, about 250 years ago, something really significant happened for us. What was that? I heard a couple of things mumbled. 250 years ago, so a very short period of time ago, what happened for us? Industrial Revolution, yep. So in 250 years of human history, we went from this to essentially this. And that's a really big jump in a really short period of time. And one of the things that we know about ourselves as a species is we still carry all of the human instincts which made us really effective over hundreds of thousands of years. And those haven't gone away just because we've left the savannas and we've come to work in workplaces and we now carry our mobile phones around with us. Now, the human instincts map, or the methodology, belongs to a Professor Nigel Nicholson from the London Business School. We give him credit for the understanding of human instincts. And he had a look at what humans do and have done over many, many hundreds of thousands of years and what it actually looks like today. And he identified these instincts. Now, in the context of unconscious bias, I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm going to be talking about just two of them in particular. But the whole framework itself is absolutely fascinating to have a look at. So the first one is called emotion before reason. And what that means for us as a species is that we process things emotionally first. We make up our minds based on our gut feel and our emotions, and then afterwards we use logic to back up what we've decided to do. We've managed to fool ourselves into believing that we're actually very logical and very clever, and we make all our decisions using logic. But the truth is we actually don't. We make our decisions using our emotions and then we process it later. And there's a really good reason for that. It's kept us safe and it's kept us alive. It's kind of like that gut feel, that instinct that tells us to do something. So just imagine, and this is more important if you're a female than if you're a male, if you're walking along a dark corridor, it's night, maybe it's underground, there's nobody else around, you're walking home and you hear footsteps behind you. What's the first thing that comes to mind for you? Sorry? Somebody might be following you. Yeah. And so you speed up a bit. You start to walk a bit faster and you hear the footsteps behind you walking faster as well. Now what are you thinking? Run. Yeah, and that instinct keeps us safe, that emotion before reason, because your logical brain will be saying to you, it's okay, don't panic, it's likely to be nothing, slow down, relax, it's going to be okay. But your gut is telling you that there's something going on. So we're hardwired to process emotionally first before we use logic. And this is quite a personal story for me. I'm very, very attached to Qantas as an airline, and I always fly Qantas wherever I can. I've got myself a Qantas Club membership, so logically now I have a really good reason for doing that. But the reason I love Qantas so much is because we travelled overseas and lived overseas a lot when I was a child. And I spent a lot of time being the new kid in the new school, often in a country where I didn't speak the language. So I spent a lot of time in my childhood feeling quite isolated, I guess. And I remember every time we left a particular country and we were coming home, walking along the airport concourse after we'd checked in, and as soon as I saw the flying kangaroo on the tail of the plane, and I still get goosebumps talking about it, as soon as I saw the flying kangaroo, for me that was the symbol of coming home. And so now I have this intense emotional connection to flying Qantas, and like I said, I've used all these logical reasons to back it up. But for me, I know that it's the emotion attached to Qantas, the feeling of home that goes with it. So I make a lot of my decisions, as I know, based on emotion, not logic. Now, the second one, which is really important, is first impressions to classify. So we use our very first impression of something or somebody to classify them. Why is that important? Why do you think we do that as humans? Yes. We're pattern watching, absolutely. What we're doing is we're classifying everything into, is this safe or not safe? Are you like me or are you not like me? Are you in my tribe or are you not in my tribe? Are you for me? Are you against me? That's what we're tracking for. Because if you go back hundreds of thousands of years, that was really, really important. We needed to be able to make snap judgments about things. So just imagine you're walking along the bank of a river and it's 250,000 years ago and you're gathering berries or whatever it is. And all of a sudden you hear rustling in the bushes. You have to be able to make a really fast decision about whether that's going to be good or bad. And back in those days, the majority of the time it was bad news. So if you hung around kind of trying to logically figure out what was going on, half the time you'd be dead. In fact, more than half the time you'd be dead. But we still carry this instinct. It's about, are you for me, against me? Are you like me, not like you? Most importantly, are you in my tribe or not in my tribe? If somebody's in our tribe, how do we feel about them? So if we've decided they're like us and they're in our tribe, how does that feel when you're with somebody like that, who's like you? Safe. Yep. So we've decided it's safe. I can let the guard down. I don't need to worry about you. I can turn my back on you and I don't need to worry about what you're going to do. What about if I've classified you as outside my tribe, not like me? What am I deciding about you then? How does it feel? Not as safe. Yeah, we can't let our guard down because it's not as safe. But we do make our judgments extremely quickly. I'm going to show you the next slide and I'm only going to show it for a very, very short period of time. And I want you to just go with your gut as to how it actually feels. What did you feel? What's your impression of that? They looked happy. How many people noticed they looked happy? That's how quick you could see that. Yeah. That's how quickly we make our minds up about things. We look at them and we go immediately, is it good, bad, is it happy, sad, safe, unsafe, like that. It's that fast. And if we act on it, it can save our life. This is the hotel bombings in Mumbai, and this is the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. Now, Mike Smith, who's the CEO of ANZ Bank, was staying there at the time, and he was in reception checking out. He was going to be very early for his flight because there'd been a flight delay, and the concierge said to him, would you like to stay in the bar area? We can hold your bags for you and we can ask the car to come and pick you up later. And you can stay in the bar and you can use the free internet and you can work in the bar. And he said he has no idea why, but he had this intense feeling that that was a really bad idea and he needed to leave. So he got in his car and they were literally just around the corner from the hotel when the first bombs went off in reception, and he probably would have been killed if he'd stayed. He doesn't know what he saw, but we can guarantee he saw something. There's something he saw that felt out of place, that felt odd, that felt wrong, that felt not safe. And he acted on that and it saved his life. And we go into battle over things that are important to us, this tribal thing of people who are like us and not like us. And this is something you don't see every day. It's two groups of Buddhist monks in a fist fight. And what they're fighting about is differences of opinion. You're in my tribe or you're not in my tribe. And it escalated from there, unfortunately. So we form our impressions about things based on very, very small chunks of data. We're human, that's what we do. And we do it in order, like I said, to classify. Are you good or bad? Like me, not like me. And once we've decided that, it actually takes an awful lot to change our minds. It takes a lot to change our minds once we've classified something or somebody. And classification is, quite fascinating. So there was a study done, this is quite old now, but it's been replicated over and over again. And there were students in a class who were told that they were going to have a substitute teacher. And they were everyone was given a bio to read of this teacher before the class started. What they didn't know is there were actually two bios that were almost completely identical except for a couple of words. And they were given this bio, and at the end of the class they were asked to rate the teacher on their effectiveness and a whole range of other things. Now they sat in exactly the same class, same teacher, exactly the same experience. The only difference was the bio they read before they went in. I'm going to show you the bios, have a read, and put your hand up when you spot the difference. Hands are going up, people are seeing it. Yep. So what was the difference? What did you see? Very warm versus rather cold. So at the end of the class, the students filled out a questionnaire. And this is what they actually said, and it's absolutely astonishing. It's absolutely gobsmacking. So students who received the warm bio loved the teacher. They said he was good-natured, considerate of others, informal, sociable, popular and humane. The students who received the cold bio tended to dislike him. They said he was self-centred, formal, unsociable, unpopular, irritable, humourless and ruthless. They sat in the same class, had the same experience with the same person. The only thing that had changed was basically their bias towards him at the start of the class. And they've done this experiment over and over again, and it asked students to basically assess lecturers based on a whole range of measures. And what they were doing was videotaping lectures and showing students who'd never experienced that lecturer segments of these videos. And when they showed them segments of 30 seconds at the beginning, 30 seconds in the middle, 30 seconds at the end, people were still making the same sorts of assessments. They tried 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, still getting the same assessments. 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, still the same. When it cut down to 2 seconds, 2 seconds and 2 seconds, that's when we started to actually see a bit of a difference. So once we get below about 6 seconds, it becomes more difficult to classify people. So what that tells us is we've got about 6 seconds in which we make up our minds about people, which is pretty scary, isn't it? 6 seconds. It's not very long at all. So let's have a look at some of the common biases that we have, and we know this about all human beings. It's something that exists for us all. So common biases, first impressions, which is our snap judgment. It really is that first 6 or 7 seconds. We decide what we think about someone, we stick to it. It takes a hell of a lot to change our minds. A recent study showed that people who dress in high-end labels are far more likely to be offered a job when they go for an interview. Got nothing to do with their skills or capability, it's whether they dress in high-end labels. If you wear a brand name label, you're more likely to get a job. I'll give you that as a tip. There's negative emphasis, which is rejection of somebody based on a very small amount of negative information, and this is really, really common. We tend to give unfavourable information about somebody about twice the weight of favourable information. So once we've decided something negative about somebody, it flavours every interaction we have with that person. There's the halo horns effect, which is where we allow a strong point about something to overshadow everything. So we might say, well, they're struggling in their job, but they went to a really great university, so we know they must be capable. And it works the other way too. It works out, well, they might be quite good at their job, but we don't really appreciate the place they went to school. There's our non-verbal bias, which has got a lot to do with the way that people present themselves and how they dress. Somebody told me a story once. She wasn't proud of it, but she told me she was interviewing. They were waiting for the next person to be interviewed to show up for their session, and she was looking out the window and she saw this really beat-up purple Volkswagen Beetle drive into the car park, and it had hand-painted flowers all over the outside of it. And she turned around to the rest of the interview panel and she said, I really hope that's not our next candidate because I'm not giving them a job. It was the next candidate, which is rather unfortunate. And tall men are more likely to be promoted to senior positions, and interestingly, a 6 foot tall man will earn 1.5% more than a man who's 5'10". So bias works across all things, not just about gender. Contrast effect, where people appear stronger or weaker because of contrast between two people. We have compatibility, where we tend to want to promote people or be with people or work with people who are just like us. I use the Myers-Briggs type indicator quite a lot in the work that I do, and one of the fascinating things about it is when you find teams who've been together for a long time and a team leader who's been in place for a while, the team tend to be type alike. They're like each other, because when you're recruiting and you're interviewing people and you've got a choice between two equally strong candidates, you choose the person that you like. And the reason you like them is because they're like you. That makes for a wonderful dinner party, but not necessarily for a great team. And then there's our primacy and recency effect, which is where we pay more attention to and put more weight on information that we receive at the beginning of a period of time and also at the end. So it's another tip for job interviewing. If you want to be rated as a good candidate, see if you can get the first interview spot or the last interview spot. Don't do the ones in the middle. So our instincts are always going to play out, but we can actually reshape them. So what we need in order to combat our human instincts is, first of all, the information about our biases. We need to know what the common biases are. We need to identify with them and know what biases we actually have. We need to have a motivation for change. Without motivation, there's no point. But what we found is the most effective way to reshape biases is exposure. The more you can spend time with people who you would normally be biased against, the more they start to feel just like you. And it becomes more about the individual person than about the classification that you've given them. So managing diversity is a lot more than policies and commitments. It's about our human nature and it's about our instincts. We need to remember that we have certain inbuilt biases. As human beings, it is just who we are. We're never going to get rid of that. It's more about becoming aware of them, exposing them, and then choosing to do something about them. And the key thing is that we see things not as they are, we see things as we are. So thank you very much. We're going to workshop a little bit, but we were going to have a short break to allow people who wish to switch sessions and join the other plenary to do that.
Thank you, Ros. Yeah, so we have got a few minutes because we'll just let people switch rooms. So if you have any questions for Ros now, feel free to fire away.
It's always the person at the outside the room, isn't it?
Thanks. Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. Just the question of people using these known biases for their own purposes. I'm thinking of influencing people's decision-making processes through using some of these techniques. I mean, it's easy to think about using it to clarify your own thinking, but also have you come across people manipulating these kinds of, this kind of knowledge to influence, say, decision makers or the public, politicians, etc.?
Yeah, it absolutely happens, and we're seeing examples of it in global politics at the moment. This idea of creating division between people who are like us and not like us. And it's very, very tribal. It's getting people back to let's figure out who's exactly like us, who's in our tribe, and let's exclude the people who are not in our tribe. So it can absolutely be used for evil as well as for good. Yeah.